Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here today. It's an honor to be with you guys. So you are attending your Loving Support Cafe. This is Dr. Masada, Marvin Masada. He's been practicing for 25 years. He's also a founder of With Grace Hospice. And if you guys don't know what hospice is, it's the conversation and the word that nobody ever wants to hear. But it's very important to understand the services also that we provide. And so hospice is a service that we provide at the end of life. So there's a team of doctors, nurses, we have volunteers, we have health aides, and we have social workers and chaplain, and we're the support team that would come and help take care of people at the end of their lives. But we're not really going to talk about that too much today. We're here to kind of provide support for you guys because you might be, a caregiver or helping somebody out, taking care of an elderly. And it's important for all of us because I was also a caregiver. I took care of my grandmother for 30 years. And sometimes we also get burnt out and we need support and we need guidance. And a lot of times we need to know how to make certain decisions. So that's kind of what we're here to help for. And also our intention is to also, help you guys feel self-expressed, get any of your emotions out. If you have certain emotions that you want to share, we're here for you guys tonight. So thank you all, and without further ado, here's Dr. Masada.
Well, thank you for having us come and visit, and I'm very excited because I want this to be your time, and so I don't have an agenda or a lecture to give. I kind of want to go with what would be useful to all of you. Okay, so this is your time, and I will teach you as much as I can, and I will learn from you as much as you are willing to share. So it's going to be something that you're going to be learning and I'm going to be learning. We're going to learn together. This is your time. So Grace was mentioning that I have been a family doctor for over 25 years. And so that is true. And I've been a hospice doctor, a director for probably about 11 or 12 years, roughly. But what makes me more qualified than both of those things is that I was a caregiver of my parents. So my father had prostate cancer and he died around Thanksgiving. And my mother, last Christmas, she had a stroke. And so she passed away around Christmas time last year. So I'm qualified because I understand what it's like to be a doctor, a medical director, but I'm also qualified because I know what you are going through as a caregiver, as a loved one who's lost somebody. And so my sisters and I, we've cared for my mom for many years before she died. So I know what it's like to change a person's bedding, diaper, give them showers. I've been a caregiver and I realize how tough of a job that is. So I kind of empathize with you who are loved ones caring for people, okay? Now this number on the board is 7 million. And the significance of 7 million is that's how many people that will have Alzheimer's by the end of this year. So in 2024, there are going to be estimated 7 million people in this country alone who have Alzheimer's. And that doesn't include all the other kinds of dementia. It's just Alzheimer's. So if there's 7 million people with Alzheimer's and each person has a family, just think there must be 21 million, 28 million people who are going through stress and hardship caring for those 7 million people who have Alzheimer's. Okay, so you're not alone. You're in good company. Okay? Now, the thing about Alzheimer's is that a person who has Alzheimer's or memory loss or any kind of dementia, they're not the same person that we married or grew up with or knew as a friend. In a way, they're kind of broken. And right now, there is no cure for dementia and Alzheimer's, so they're going to stay broken. And so the question is, how can we take a person who we love dearly, who is broken, and make the best of their time left? So there is a Japanese art form called kintsugi. And kintsugi takes these pieces of broken pottery and puts it back together with gold. And sometimes the things that are broken, who are never new again, are put together in a way that sometimes they're just as valuable or more valuable than what we started out with. And so we're going to try to take the loved one who has memory loss and chronic diseases or whatever, who are broken, and try to make their quality of life as good as possible. And that's why I like the word kintsugi, because it takes things that are broken and puts them back together again the best we can. And so for our loved ones, that means trying to make their quality of life as good as possible. And sometimes we need physical help. We need caregivers. We need people to help us. But sometimes people don't always need advice. Sometimes all we really need is a hand to hold, an ear to listen, and a heart to understand. And that's why we're here as a support group, is we can support each other. We may not be able to carry things, buy things, move things, or whatever, but sometimes just being a friend, a neighbor, somebody who will listen to me and understand me and help me get through this is more important than physical needs. So basically, we want hope. That's our goal. Hope that the person we love will have the best life possible. Hope that they will know that they have been loved, even when they don't remember things. Hope that we will have the strength to make that happen, and hope that we'll survive. And that's why we're here today, together. Okay? So, I'm going to just kind of open it up and see where this goes, knowing that that's our premise. We're here to help each other, learn from each other, support each other, and that's the purpose of a support group. And so if you have any medical questions, any concerns, thoughts, I will tell you what dementia is. If you're interested, I'll tell you anything that you want to talk about. It can. So it does run in the family. It doesn't mean you will get dementia, but if you have a family member who has dementia, you're probably at a higher risk. But there are things that cause dementia, and there are different kinds of dementia that everything is not Alzheimer's. So the number one kind of dementia is Alzheimer's, and the second most common one is Lewy body dementia, but there's a bunch of dementias. And so maybe with that question, I'm just going to kind of tell you about dementias. Okay? So what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Anybody have an idea?
Dementia is a specific gene that tends to be involved.
Oh, that's a good thought, yes. So dementia is the big category of things that cause memory loss. So it's sort of like saying, what's the difference between soda and Pepsi? Or what's the difference between soda and Coca-Cola? Okay? So soda is the big category, and Pepsi is one kind of soda. Dementia is the broad category that is all the kinds of things that cause memory loss, and Alzheimer's is one of those kinds of dementia. Okay? So a lot of people kind of wonder, what I hear dementia and Alzheimer's, how are they the same or how are they different? But again, like Pepsi is a kind of soda, Alzheimer's is a kind of dementia. So dementia is the kind of the generic term, just like soda is the generic term. I'm going to just tell you about caregivers. Okay, so caregivers are, many of you may be caregivers or may become caregivers. And so caregivers is a very challenging task. And I give everybody who's a caregiver a lot of credit because it's not an easy job. No matter how much you love the person, how much you know the person, how much you want to help, it's not an easy task. And so they estimate that 80% of people who are caregivers are stressed out. And so if you feel overwhelmed or stressed because you're a caregiver, again, you're not alone. And that's why we're here to share our stories, support each other, because we don't want to feel like we're the only ones feeling that, because all of us are. I felt that when I was a caregiver. Okay. Now, this is not to discourage, but a lot of times when you're a caregiver, they estimate that you'll lose about 3 years of your lifespan just by being a caregiver. Because we tend to not get enough rest, we don't take care of ourselves, and so we lose about 3 years of our lifespan just being a caregiver. So it's important to take care of yourself, okay? Maybe I'll say one last thing before I go on. You know, if you're ever in an airplane, one of the things that the stewardess would always talk about is if this cup drops from the ceiling, don't panic. It just means that there's a chance that we're losing oxygen in the plane, but don't panic. But what's always interesting is they'll always tell you to put the mask on yourself before you put it on your child. And you would think that I would rather protect my child and I would want to put it on my child first. But the thought is that you need to protect yourself so that you can watch over the child. You need to take care of yourselves, because if something happened to you, then the loved one that you're trying to care for won't have anybody to care for them. So a lot of times we sacrifice ourselves, not getting enough sleep, not going to the doctor, not getting rest, not getting relaxation, because we're so worried about our person we're caring for. But if we don't put the mask on ourselves and something happens to us, then they're going to lose their best advocate. Okay, so care for yourself. You're just as important as a person you're caring for. You know, this gentleman, he has helped a lot of people who have special needs. And so the thing about people who are different, whether they have dementia or special needs, or they have gray hair or tall, short, overweight, thin, you know, we put labels on them and we discriminate. And for the person who has dementia, they're kind of lumped into that category as well. We treat them as crazy people, broken people, and yet it's not their fault. It's the disease. It's just like, I will lock up everybody and be ashamed of anybody who has high blood pressure. I will have, you know, shame and whatever for anybody who has asthma or diabetes or a stubbed toe. Oh my gosh, they're not normal. But yeah, the hope is that once we get to know what dementia is and what that is and how to treat them, hopefully we can educate the people who kind of aren't as educated and aware as you. You know, I think the problem with people is that we're not perfect. And so there is a lot of prejudice and bias. And one of the problems of being a caregiver is cultural, political, even religious, you know, people who should know better. What gets in our way of being good caregivers is all these biases that we have that keeps us from doing the right thing? And the answer is it's not going to be easy. If it was easy to, make somebody accept somebody with dementia or Alzheimer's, then it should be easy to make somebody love somebody of a different skin color or a different belief or whatever. But we don't. We're flawed. And so we try to teach them the best we can. This has nothing to do with dementia, but I was just at a wedding, and the groom's father said when he was getting married, he was marrying somebody of a different race. And basically, he was shunned from the family because he was doing something that wasn't accepted by the family. But over time, the family fell in love with his wife, even though she was of a different ethnicity. So the hope is that we can learn. And that's kind of a hope. Like I said, we have hope that something will change. And just like this family was being torn apart by a mixed marriage, they fell in love with this other person and they were fine. But this is one of the most important things I think about when I do hospice. Okay, so sometimes I meet with families of the hospice, the people who are family members or friends of a person who is dying. And I tell them that I'm less worried about the person who's dying than the people in the family. It's so often that I see people being torn apart, loving families being torn apart because they disagree on who should be the caregiver. Should they be hospitalized? Should they put in the nursing home? Should be put on a hospice? Should be given pain medicines or not pain medicines? I've seen families that are so close, and then at the time of somebody's decline, they are torn apart. And I tell the family that your loved one will be fine. Your loved one will be fine. And his time on the earth may be short, but the family are going to be torn apart and hurt for years and years. And so I think my wish is for people to try to keep the family together because they will be torn apart. I just see it so many times. So I tell them from the get-go that you as a family need to get together to figure out what's best for the loved one. And most people are kind of thinking about their own needs and their own biases and selfish things. So there's always this disagreement.
The grief that comes with that is something that we should not underestimate. And I feel also that with that, we need the support. We can't do it alone. And it's not only the physical things that we can't do alone, because, we threw out our bags, because obviously sometimes we are not the strongest anymore ourselves. But also I feel the emotional part is so hard. And having somebody that is going through the same stuff, even everybody's journey is different. Everybody's thing is just different. But having somebody that actually can understand what you are going through is so important. That's why I'm always advocating for support groups, for somebody that actually understands. And having somebody also that can give you input from a more professional standpoint is also very, very important. And if I just can do some kind of advertisement here, besides that, of course, Dr. Masada, but Tipa snow, like the snow, the white stuff that sometimes comes from the, Tipa Snow. She has a website and a YouTube channel, and she is amazing.
So Sabina is a nurse practitioner, and she's been doing hospice and elder care for a long time. One thing she said was the husband was the rock of the family. Okay, you support the husband or the loved one was the rock of the family. We depended on that person to get things done, to do things, to get the family through certain things. But later on in life, this rock of the family becomes a rock in the shoe. Okay? And it's like having a rock in the shoe. You want to enjoy the TV program, you want to enjoy the restaurant, you want to get together with friends, you want to do this, this, and this. But the rock in the shoe is just so annoying. I cannot do anything because I'm always going to be worried about my loved one. And again, it's the rock in the shoe. So that rock of the family is now a rock in the shoe. I went to a concert last week. It was a Michael W. Smith concert, and it was a Christmas concert. And what was interesting about this concert is he wrote a song about his dad. And I didn't know he had written the song, but it caught my attention because of what I do. He wrote a song that there was all this wonderful Christmas stuff going on around him, the children playing the songs, the tree, and all these wonderful Christmas things. And yet he would be crying. He would be looking at the chair that was empty. He would be crying because even though all this wonderful, hopeful, joyous, great things were going around him, there was a rock in his shoe that was just kind of reminding him of the pain, the suffering, and the hurt, and the hardships that people have been going through. And it's hard because a person who was the rock of Gibraltar, or the foundation of our family, is now so dependent that it's becoming a burden. And that's all of us. When I went on trips or whatever, I would always think back of my mom. What if something happened if I left? And I would feel bad about going because what if I'm not there when my mom was there? Yeah. And so, again, you need to surround yourself with people who can support you, who know what it's like and who can get you through. I was thinking about it a lot, and I thought, it helps. There's even Thanksgiving. When I said goodbye to my patient right before Thanksgiving, I said, no matter how hard your life is, no matter how many bad things are going on, how many challenges there are, there's always something to be thankful for. And no matter how big this rock is and how much it hurts my foot, boy, there's always some good memories. And I'll share one of those memories. My daughter is in school, and she was saying her friends are going to go Christmas caroling. And right away, when she said Christmas caroling, I remember one layer of my pearl. Okay? So I grew up in a small town, and my father was a farmer. And so every Christmas, people in our church, he would pull out his tractor, hook it up to the trailer, and he would load these bales of hay. And then we would all jump on board, and then we would go through town singing Christmas carols. And we would stop at people's homes and sing Christmas carols, and sometimes people would come out. And right away, that memory came back to me when my daughter said, we're going to sing Christmas carols. And so I realized that something that hurt me years back now has a coating on it that makes it a pearl. And so if I think hard enough, I can think of a lot of things like that. And so that's my pearl. Even though I missed my father and it hurt when it happened, I survived. There's hope. I'm going to show you a title of a book, okay? And it's something that I could recommend, but it's a title of the book that I'm going to show you. It's called The 36-Hour Day. So the amount of work that a caregiver has to give is equal to 36 hours of work in a 24-hour time. You know, I'm going to talk about the village. Okay, so we mentioned villages a couple of times. That wonderful woman back there, she mentioned a village. I mentioned a village. It takes a village. Sabina mentioned a village. It takes a village. Okay, so this is one village that I want you to be aware of, and that's hospice. So dementia, Alzheimer's, is like the sixth leading cause of death in this country. Okay, the sixth leading cause of death. And so people think, well, how can people die from not remembering things? But it's the sixth leading cause of death in this country because people forget to eat, people fall, people get pneumonias, a lot of things happen. And so it's the sixth leading cause of death. And so when a person is declining, then at least something that you might think about is hospice. And hospice has a bad connotation. It's like what this gentleman, you know, it's like Alzheimer's. It's evil to even mention the word hospice and Alzheimer's, and these are evil words. But it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I put my mother and father on hospice. That's how much I believe in it. But it's your village. So when things are declining, a person is not eating, losing weight, sleeping more, falling more, going to the hospitals often, then maybe it's time to think, if there's a decline, then I need to call in my village. And when you have this village, you get not only a doctor, and in this case, a medical director or whoever the doctor is, you get nurses that will come to your home. And they are just wonderful, caring people. I think some of my favorite nurses are hospice nurses because they have a wonderful heart to do what they do. And if something happens in the middle of the night, you have somebody to call, somebody to hold your hand, somebody to tell you what to do next. And that's 24/7. And if necessary, they'll come and visit. Okay? You'll have a social worker to get through some of the bureaucracy, whether it's insurances or Medi-Cal or whatever it is. The bureaucracy is a burden, and maybe somebody to help wade through that would be useful. So you get a social worker. We have a chaplain, just the kindest, wonderful man that will also hold your hand and give you counseling, grief counseling, spiritual counseling, whatever you need to help strengthen you so you can get through this tough time. You have home health aides who can come and help bathe or help do things. So again, you would inherit this village if you do hospice. And hospice is not giving up. Okay, so that's the thing is, when people hear the word hospice, it's like a dirty word. Oh my gosh, don't say that in public. That's a taboo. But really, hospice doesn't mean that you're giving up. It doesn't mean that they're going to get morphine and they're just going to die really fast. That's not true. Okay? Hospice changes the goal of their care from curing, which sometimes we can't. Whether it's a cancer or Alzheimer's, we can't cure things. We know they'll decline. So it changes your goal from curing to quality of life. Okay? But people, no. Quality of life is not giving morphine and making them die faster. That's not good. So Medicare actually did a study. They got 5,000 people roughly, and they said, let's see if that's true. So we're going to divide these 5,000 people into two groups. We're going to put 2,500 in one group, 2,500 in another group. And they'll have some kind of disease or condition that they're dying from. And let's see what happens. So the end of the story was that the people who were in hospice lived as long as the people who weren't in hospice. And for some conditions, they actually lived longer. But not only did they live the same or longer, but their quality of life was so much better. And so when people feel guilty about the hospice, oh my gosh, I'm giving up, That's not true at all. You're actually doing something better for the loved one and yourself. Okay? So the rules of hospice is that you have a life expectancy of 6 months or less. Okay? So they can be on hospice for at least 6 months, at least. But most people are on hospice only 2 weeks because we wait till the last minute. And so, well, they can't be on hospice until they're comatose and in bed and can't speak and can't eat, and that's hospice. No. We have people who are on hospice who still go to restaurants. We've had people go gambling, and I'm not saying you should do that, but we have people who still enjoy life, and yet they're on hospice because they're dying. But they're not bedridden, they're not comatose, they're not the way we think end of life should be. And so you get 6 months of a village instead of just 2 days or 2 weeks. And it's so important to have somebody, oh my gosh, something happened, I don't know what to do. What do I do next? Well, that's where you call the village. And so she had a good experience with her mom on hospice because she was more social and was able to enjoy things and even have parties, which may not have happened if she wasn't in hospice. Okay, but hospice is a wonderful thing, and just people are thinking, oh my gosh, but how much does it cost? It must cost a lot, and I don't have the money to pay for hospice. It's totally free. And if I heard myself saying that, I would be kind of skeptical and cynical. Come on, there's nothing that's free, but it's free, and you're not gonna get this big bill after the person passes away. It's free. He brings up a good point. So most people want to die at home. Okay, most people want to die at home. They don't want to die in a cold hospital where people are poking them and waking them up in the middle of the night and making all this noise. And, they want to die at home where they're comfortable, where their loved ones are. So 80% of people want to die at home. Okay? But only 20% actually do. But the goal of hospice is to keep people out of the hospital. So we will increase that chance of fulfilling the wish of the loved ones and having them be at home in their own bed, comfortable, instead of going to the hospital and dying in the hospital. Because 80% want to die at home, but because we feel that we have to send them to the hospital, only 20% actually die at home. But our hospice is we want to have them live out their life where they want to be. I had patients who also could not see their loved ones because they were in the hospital dying from COVID. But we've learned so much, and COVID has changed so much. So we have people in hospice who have COVID, and they're still at home. We don't send them to hospitals, isolation, and everything. They still die at home because we know more about COVID. We know how it works, how to protect. So a lot of our patients do get COVID, and yet they still are on hospice and die at home. I think that hospice is kind of an interesting thing because you're just going to meet so many wonderful people. It's just amazing the hearts and the care of the people who do hospice. Now, this is kind of bad for business, but sometimes we see people who look like they're going to die. They look horrible. And yet that little extra loving care, that little extra help, nursing, whatever it is, they turn around. And we've graduated people from hospice. So, there's some things we can't cure, but there are things that people are improving enough that they come off of hospice. And so it's bad for business. We want them to stay sick and stay on our hospice, but sometimes that doesn't happen. The care that they give, again, they will graduate. We've had some people just this month who've graduated from hospice. Yeah. The thing about hospice is it's not like buying a new car or a new house. You signed a contract and you're locked in. If things get better, you can come off of hospice. Hospice and palliative care, the person has to have some kind of terminal condition, something that they will die from. And so the practical side of things is, this is kind of just to give you an idea, is that if you're on hospice, then we think that there's a chance that you will die within 6 months. In palliative care, it could be a year or even longer. So they're not actively dying, they're not seriously ill, but they do have some kind of condition that is serious. And so they probably have a longer lifespan. The benefit of hospice, if you qualify, not everybody will qualify, but if the benefit of hospice, if you qualify, is that the goal of the doctors, the insurance companies, everybody is to keep you at home and give you the best quality life possible. So if you needed a hospital bed, there's a good chance you will get a hospital bed. If you need oxygen, whether you need it or not, you could get oxygen. If you need a wheelchair, you can get things easily. On palliative care, you basically have to go through your insurance. We would have to call the insurance up and ask for a hospital bed or ask for oxygen, and you have to qualify. So there's an extra level of bureaucracy because you're not, terminal in terms of dying within 6 months. So you're going to live long enough, hopefully, for the insurance to say yes. Yeah. And so we have to go through a little more bureaucracy, where on hospice, we don't want that burden on the family. We don't want that burden on the patient. So we're going to try to make it as easy as possible. If you need medications delivered to your home, we'll deliver it. If you need something, we'll try to get it to you. We're not going to have to go through the insurance and fight for you. We want you to kind of not have that rock in the shoe. We're going to try to remove that rock in the shoe, or at least chip it away so it's a smaller rock, and that it won't be so bothersome, because you have more important things to focus on.